For a lot of the kids, my understanding of the development is that we all internalize mother. And so that's how we maintain our relationship with mother, which leads into also the development of the superego or inner critic, where that'll often take on the parental perspective and be giving us its judgments on what we should be doing and not doing. So I think that's part of the way that we manage the separation with mother, is through the creation of that structure. And another of the structures that we create too is the good boy or good girl. And it's basically, we want to keep the adults engaged with us. We want them to keep feeding us and keep us alive. And we recognize that we want their approval. So we start orienting towards ourselves as a good boy or good girl, and whatever that means in that family. And that leads to us also creating a separation when we do things that are unskillful or hurt ourselves or others. We divorce ourselves from that action. We can't see that we did that. So it's often put off on others. I couldn't do it because I'm the good boy, and good boys don't do things like that. And so it begins this separation between our behavior, trying to maintain this good, and the things we do that are unskillful. And that creates its own pattern of problem, which we have to also unwind at some point. In the process of the awakening trajectory, we end up working the good boy or good girl. We have to recognize and begin to acknowledge and take responsibility for what we do. And so that becomes part of it. And then also, as I mentioned, the structuring of the superego, which is that part of us that judges when we do things wrong. The superego pronouncements, that's the dumbest thing you've ever done. I can't believe how stupid you are. And on and on. People have horrible superegos. And the superego is intended when we're little to help us not to run in the street, not to play with matches, all those good things. But unfortunately, we don't put it down as we get older. One spiritual teacher, Hamid Ali, has a great line. He said, the superego is the donkey that we ride to enlightenment. And I just love that line, because it means it's not just going to disappear. It's something we have to work with. And the superego can be converted later in practice, whereas it's digested, it can be converted into a kind of guidance. So it can shift in that way. So all this is to say that all these structures are working, and this is why we can have a Kensho experience. But it doesn't mean that all of our psychological structures are all neutralized and we're just this amazing living Buddha. It takes time for that. It takes time and practice and continuing to engage practice. So just to say, that's part of our structuring, and this is the main resistance to awakening, is our investment in the sense of self as a real thing. That, this is real. I am the separate person. This is me. I mean, how often have you heard people say that? Something like, this is just who I am. People really invest in that sense of self. So while we're here, it's helpful if you can try to be as loose and light with it as possible. Again, when you're making decisions, really open it up, broaden the decision. You go up for tea. Well, what tea do I want? What's the right tea for right now? Rather than I always reach for this one tea. So it starts inviting more possibilities, which give us more choices, and we're less stuck in our habituated patterns.